Dr. Collins stood over the lifeless body of the alien girl, his breath shallow and fast. The room was cold, and the sound of the sterile instruments in his hands echoed through the silence. The mission had been clear: study the alien, figure out what made her tick, and document everything. But what he didn't expect was for her to be alive. Just hours ago, the alien had been found unconscious, nearly destroyed after a brutal battle with an unknown force. At first glance, she appeared to be dead, her body twisted and mangled. But the mission had continued despite the assumptions. With no signs of recovery, Dr. Collins had been instructed to perform an autopsy. He carefully positioned his scalpel over the girl's chest, his hands steady as he cut through her skin. It felt wrong to be doing this. She was a mystery, one that could change everything humanity knew about life, the universe, and the unknown. His mind raced with questions, but as the blade touched her, something strange happened. A flicker, a twitch. Her fingers moved. Dr. Collins froze. His heart stopped for a moment as he stared in disbelief. Could it be possible? Was she still alive? He leaned closer to examine her more closely. Her skin, so cold just seconds ago, seemed to be warming. The tiniest breath of air stirred her chest, though he was sure he hadn't imagined it. He checked the equipment. The life signs, according to the monitors, were non-existent. No heartbeat, no brain activity. She should have been dead. But here she was, moving in the slightest of ways. The room seemed to shrink around him. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He looked around, wondering if anyone else had seen it. There was no one, just the quiet hum of the machinery, but his mind raced. Was it a trick? Could the technology be malfunctioning? But there was no mistaking what he had just seen. The alien girl's body had twitched. She was alive, or at least, she wasn't as dead as they had thought. Dr. Collins took a step back, unsure of what to do next. He wasn't prepared for this. He had expected to examine a corpse, not a survivor. He looked at the girl's face, her pale skin and silver eyes still closed. But now there was something else, something that felt like a spark, a sign that she might be more than they'd first believed. What was happening? How could she possibly be alive? And what was she going to do now? As he stood there, the silence in the room grew heavier, and Dr. Collins couldn't shake the feeling that something dangerous was about to unfold. The alien girl wasn't just a body to be studied. She was a mystery, and that mystery was about to reveal itself in ways no one could ever imagine. The story had only just begun. The stillness in the room grew suffocating. As Dr. Collins stood frozen, staring at the alien girl, his heart pounded and his thoughts raced. He had seen what he thought was a lifeless creature, but now, in front of him, something defied logic. The faint rise and fall of her chest was undeniable, almost imperceptible, but it was there. She was breathing. The shock was enough to make him question everything he thought he knew about this alien species. His mind was racing. How could this be? The readings were clear. Her vital signs had been flat for hours. She was supposed to be dead. He had watched as the last signs of life faded. And yet, here she was, stirring ever so slightly. Dr. Collins leaned closer, his breath catching in his throat as he inspected her more carefully. He could feel a strange energy in the air, something he couldn't explain. Her body seemed to be changing, adapting to something invisible. He reached out, touching her cold skin with trembling fingers. The warmth was spreading, not like a fever or infection, but like a slow, deliberate shift, a shift that had never been observed in any human or alien species. Dr. Collins' mind flashed with possibilities. Could this be a form of hibernation? Some kind of defense mechanism that allowed her to heal herself? Or was this something else, something far beyond human comprehension? Suddenly, her hand moved again, more deliberately this time. Dr. Collins stepped back, his heart hammering in his chest. He couldn't take his eyes off her. What was she trying to do? Was she aware? Could she hear him? The thought sent a chill down his spine. And then, without warning, her eyes snapped open. Dr. Collins gasped, stumbling backward as he locked eyes with her. Her gaze was sharp, intelligent, and undeniably aware. His mind scrambled to process the situation. The alien girl was alive, and there was no telling what she might do next. She didn't make a sound, but the way she looked at him was enough. It was as though she was trying to understand him, to read him. And just as quickly as the shock of her awakening set in, another unsettling realization followed. This alien girl, who had been presumed dead, was now awake and possibly more powerful than anything he could imagine. She didn't seem frightened. Instead, there was something calm and calculating in her eyes. A strange tension filled the room. Dr. Collins took a step back, unsure of what to do. He had no protocol for this, no preparation for a situation like this. She was beyond the scope of anything he had studied in the alien specimens brought to Earth. This was no ordinary alien. She had survived an attack that should have killed her, and now she was awake, staring him down like an enigma wrapped in mystery. The thought that she might be more than just a subject to study, more than just a specimen, began to take root in Dr. Collins' mind. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't even a prisoner. She was something else entirely, and whatever she was, it was clear that they were now standing on the edge of something, much bigger than anyone had expected. But as the silence stretched on, one question lingered in Dr. Collins' mind: why had she awoken now? And what did she want from him? The room seemed to close in around Dr. Collins as he stood there, barely able to breathe. The alien girl's eyes never left him, her gaze unwavering and filled with a depth that unnerved him. He knew she wasn't like the other aliens they had studied. This one was different. He could feel it in his bones. A strange, almost magnetic force seemed to pulse from her, an energy he couldn't explain. His mind raced with fear and fascination. What was going on here? He took a slow, cautious step toward her, trying to calm his trembling hands. He had to understand. There was something happening, something bigger than just her revival. As he moved closer, she shifted, slowly sitting up with an unnatural grace. It was as though she had no trouble at all, despite the extensive damage she had suffered earlier. No signs of weakness, no sign of distress. She moved as if her body was perfectly whole, as if the battle had never happened. Dr. Collins held his breath. He didn't know what to do. Part of him wanted to run, but another part of him, a much stronger part, needed answers. He couldn't let this opportunity slip away. What did she want? What did she need? She had to be conscious of him. She had to be aware. But the question was she hostile? Was she capable of understanding or communicating with him? A low, humming sound broke the silence. It came from deep within her chest, vibrating through the air like a song. Dr. Collins froze. The noise wasn't anything human. It was more like a call, a warning, or perhaps a message he couldn't tell. It was so strange, yet oddly beautiful. The alien girl tilted her head slightly, as if listening to the sound herself, her eyes narrowing. It was then that Dr. Collins noticed something more terrifying. Her pupils weren't normal. They were shifting, changing shape, like they were adjusting to the light or perhaps to the environment. Suddenly, she spoke. The words were foreign to him, a series of sharp, clicking sounds that made his skin prickle. His mind couldn't comprehend the language, but something about the tone struck him deeply. She was trying to communicate. The realization hit him like a thunderclap. She wasn't just awake, she was aware. She was trying to tell him something, and he couldn't understand a single word. The hum in the air grew louder, more intense, almost vibrating through his body. Dr. Collins felt the hairs on his neck stand up as the room seemed to pulse with energy. It was as if the walls themselves were alive, responding to the alien girl's presence. He backed up slowly, his eyes fixed on her. There was a strange power coming from her, something he hadn't felt before. Her body, despite the damage it had suffered, seemed to be regenerating before his very eyes. The bruises, the wounds, everything was healing, fading, as if time itself was rewinding. It was as though she had control over her own biology. Dr. Collins's mind raced. This wasn't just an alien, this was something far more advanced. Something that could heal itself, something with abilities far beyond human understanding. The way she moved, the way she interacted with her environment, it wasn't just survival. It was mastery. He couldn't help but wonder, what was she really? And why had she been sent here? Was she a scout, a messenger, or something far more dangerous? And then there was the most chilling thought of all. Was she here to study them, just as they had studied her? The alien girl's gaze locked with his once again, and for a brief, terrifying moment, Dr. Collins felt as though she could read every thought in his mind. He wasn't sure who was studying who anymore. The room grew colder as she tilted her head, almost as if she was pondering the next move. He didn't know what would happen next, but he was sure of one thing: this was just the beginning. The alien girl's strange humming grew louder, vibrating through the very core of Dr. Collins's body, each note carrying an urgency he couldn't ignore. Her eyes, unblinking and intense, seemed to pierce into him, as though searching for something within. She was trying to tell him something, but he couldn't understand her. The clicks and pulses that escaped her lips were foreign, alien, and the room felt like it was closing in around him. A deep sense of dread coiled in his stomach, but his curiosity burned brighter. She shifted slightly, her gaze flicking to the monitors behind him. Her eyes flickered with a sudden intensity, almost as though she was studying the machines themselves. Dr. Collins felt a chill run down his spine. It wasn't just that she was alive, it was that she was aware of everything. She was understanding more than he ever anticipated. The realization sent a wave of unease over him. What else could she understand? Then, without warning, her body tensed, her fingers curling into fists. Dr. Collins instinctively stepped back, his heart racing. For a moment, everything was still, and the air seemed thick with tension. He didn't know if this was a sign of aggression or a prelude to something more. He couldn't afford to make a mistake. He had no idea what she was capable of, but one thing was certain: she was dangerous. The alien girl opened her mouth again, but this time, it wasn't just a random collection of clicks and sounds. A low, melodic tone filled the room, almost like a song. But there was something more to it, something deeper, as if the vibrations resonated not only in the air but in his very mind. Dr. Collins felt a strange pressure building in his head, like the alien's voice was reaching inside his brain, unraveling something deep within. He winced, trying to block it out, but the feeling was too strong. It was as if the alien was probing his thoughts, pushing at the very edges of his consciousness. "Stop," he muttered under his breath, but the alien girl's eyes never wavered. The pressure intensified. She was communicating with him not through language, but through something far more invasive, something he didn't know how to handle. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the pressure lifted. The humming stopped. The air returned to normal, but Dr. Collins was left shaken, sweating. His heart thudded in his chest, and his mind raced. What had just happened? It felt as though she had reached into his mind, tapping into his thoughts without permission. There was no way he could explain it, but he knew one thing for certain now: she wasn't just an alien species to study. She was a force to be reckoned with. The girl tilted her head again, almost curiously, as if watching his every reaction, analyzing him. She had spoken to him in a way he couldn't comprehend, and now she was waiting for a response. Dr. Collins had no idea what she expected, but he knew that whatever she wanted, it was bigger than anything he had imagined. She wasn't just surviving. She was aware of him, aware of everything around her, and that meant the stakes were far higher than he could ever have anticipated. His mind raced to process everything that had happened, but one question lingered at the forefront of his thoughts. What was the alien girl trying to tell him? And more importantly, why now? Dr. Collins could feel the tension in the room thickening, as if the very air around him was charged with energy. The alien girl, now fully awake, had not made a move since the strange communication had ended. She was studying him, her eyes locked onto his, as if trying to decode his every emotion. Her presence was overwhelming, like a storm waiting to break, and Dr. Collins felt as though he were standing at the edge of something vast and dangerous. His mind was racing, his thoughts tumbling over one another. What had just happened? The alien girl had reached into his mind, there was no doubt about it. But why? Was she trying to communicate in a way that no human could understand? Or was this something more, something deeper than mere language? Dr. Collins couldn't be sure, but the sense of foreboding gnawed at him. Then, without any warning, the girl moved. Her body jerked forward, but it wasn't a sudden or violent movement. It was fluid, deliberate, as if she was testing her strength. She stood up slowly, her limbs graceful and precise, her movements unnatural in their smoothness. Dr. Collins took an involuntary step back, his eyes wide with disbelief. She wasn't just a survivor. She was becoming something far more than he had expected. The injuries that had once ravaged her body were now nearly gone. He could see the bruises fading, the cuts closing, as if her alien biology was healing itself at an accelerated rate. It was a sight that both horrified and fascinated him. How could this be? How could an alien, one that had been damaged beyond recognition, now be standing before him? Whole again, Dr. Collins watched in awe as she flexed her fingers, testing her new strength, as though she were assessing her own body, adjusting to the newfound power within her. Her eyes flickered to the nearby table where the surgical instruments lay, and for a moment, Dr. Collins could have sworn that she was considering them, as if wondering whether to use them. But then, just as suddenly, her gaze turned to the window, her attention shifting to something far beyond the walls of the laboratory. Dr. Collins followed her gaze, but all he saw was the bleak, empty landscape outside. Was she sensing something? Her gaze was focused, intense, almost as though she were attuned to something he couldn't see, something hidden just beyond his perception. His pulse quickened. Was she here for a reason? Was she sent to Earth for something greater, something far beyond the scope of his understanding? The questions swirled in his mind, but he couldn't find the answers. The more he watched her, the more he realized just how little he knew. She wasn't just a subject to be studied. She was a force, a creature beyond his comprehension, one that held knowledge, power, and purpose far beyond what he had ever encountered. The alien girl took a slow step forward, her movements still fluid, almost predatory. Dr. Collins held his breath. Was she coming toward him? The air around them seemed to vibrate with anticipation, and he could feel the weight of her presence, like a heavy pressure in the room. He took another step back, but his legs were rooted to the ground. Something deep within him told him that this was only the beginning. Whatever had been awakened inside her, it was far from over. Her eyes locked onto his again, and for a fleeting moment, Dr. Collins felt as though she could see straight through him. She was more than alive, she was adapting. She was changing, and as she stepped closer, he realized that the true mystery was only just beginning to unfold. The alien girl's steps were deliberate, slow, as though she was fully aware of the power contained within her every movement. Dr. Collins stood frozen, his mind still racing, trying to grasp the enormity of what was happening. The lab felt too small now, too confined. She had once been a specimen, something to be dissected and understood, but now she was more, much more. As she drew closer, Dr. Collins noticed something he hadn't before. Her skin, once a pale and alien shade, was now shimmering with a strange, almost ethereal glow. It wasn't just the lights in the lab reflecting off her. There was an energy radiating from her, a subtle hum in the air, like static before a storm. He took another step back, his breath hitching in his throat. He had no idea what was happening, but it was beyond anything he had ever anticipated. The alien girl paused, her head tilting slightly, as if she was considering him, calculating her next move. Her expression remained neutral, but there was something in her eyes, a knowing look, as though she had already understood the extent of what was unfolding and perhaps what was to come. Dr. Collins couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't just observing him. She was studying the world around her. She was planning. Suddenly, her body tensed, and Dr. Collins' heart skipped a beat. She moved with lightning speed, a blur of motion that caught him off guard. One moment, she was standing still, and the next, she was inches from him, her face only a breath away. Dr. Collins recoiled instinctively, but his body was slow to react. Her eyes locked onto his with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. For a split second, it felt like the room had vanished, and there was nothing but her gaze, cold, calculating, and unblinking. The world around him seemed to blur, the walls closing in, as if he were in the midst of a dream. Unable to wake, he could feel his heart pounding, his body on edge. What did she want from him? Was she capable of hurting him? Or was she trying to tell him something he was too slow to understand? Before he could gather his thoughts, she spoke again, but this time it was different. The clicking sounds, the alien hum, had transformed into something more complex, more structured. It wasn't just noise, it was language. He could feel it in the air, resonating deep within him. Her words pierced through the chaos of his thoughts, their meaning somehow clear. even if he couldn't comprehend the language. It was as though her words were not just sounds but something far deeper, reaching into his mind. The air in the room thickened, the vibrations growing stronger. Something was about to happen, something that Dr. Collins could neither control nor predict. The room felt charged with an unseen force as Dr. Collins stood face to face with the alien girl. Her words, though unintelligible, seemed to echo in his mind, each one sending a ripple of energy through the air. It was as if the very fabric of reality was bending around her, reshaping itself in ways that defied reason. She wasn't just an alien, she was something far beyond, something that could unravel the laws of nature itself. For a brief moment, Dr. Collins stood still, unable to move. His mind was overwhelmed, flooded with the realization that this encounter was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The alien girl wasn't a mere subject of study anymore. She was something to be reckoned with, something that could alter the course of history. As the vibrations in the air reached a crescendo, the alien girl suddenly stepped back, breaking the intense eye contact they had shared. She was no longer the fragile, lifeless creature he had first encountered. She was standing tall, powerful, as though she had just awakened to a new reality, one where she was in control. She looked around the room, her gaze sharp and calculating. Before focusing once again on Dr. Collins, it was clear that she was assessing her surroundings, understanding them in a way he couldn't even begin to fathom. The ground beneath them seemed to tremble as if reacting to her presence, and Dr. Collins stumbled backward, his legs shaky. He couldn't look away from her, even though everything inside him screamed to run. There was no escaping this. Whatever she was, whatever she had become, it was far beyond his comprehension. Suddenly, a low rumble filled the air like a distant thunderclap. The lights in the room flickered and then dimmed, casting long shadows on the walls. Dr. Collins felt a strange pressure in his chest, as if the weight of the moment was too much for him to bear. He tried to breathe, but the air felt thick, suffocating. The alien girl seemed to notice his discomfort, her gaze softening just slightly. But it was a fleeting moment, and soon her expression returned to that unreadable neutrality. She took a step toward the door, her movements deliberate and calm. Dr. Collins watched her, mesmerized. Was she leaving, or was she about to do something even more unimaginable? Before he could react, she turned her head slightly, her eyes meeting his once more. Without a word, she stepped out of the room, disappearing into the shadows. The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Collins stood alone, his heart racing in his chest. He didn't know what had just happened, but one thing was certain: the alien girl had awakened to something far beyond him. And now, she was out there, free. What would she do next? And more importantly, what did her survival mean for the future of Earth? As the room returned to its eerie stillness, Dr. Collins knew that the world would never be the same.